Patricia, but then after Patricia, we'll go to the gentleman back with the green shirt. Is that okay? All right.
You mentioned some number of consultations that you've done, and you said 99.9%, or I missed those numbers, so I was wondering if you could just go over that again for me. And what was that time period?
Well, since 2006 to 2013, I'm sorry, from 2006 to 2013, and those consultations with those federal agencies resulted in
5,000?
5,000, yeah. And they either ended up as no effect at all, or not likely to adversely affect, which concludes consultation. That's it.
So 99.9%?
Yes.
And what's the cost of each consultation?
Whatever time we put in on them,
Whatever
time that the action agency puts in on them. I don't have a calculation for that. I mean, that's
How long does a consultation take?
it can go from 1 day to 30. I mean, on an informal.
And how many people are involved in the consultation?
Usually just one for informals, yeah. And sometimes, yeah, we even have lower graded staff that can handle some of the no effect work that they do pretty routinely.
Okay, I just have a couple more. So you mentioned that stakeholders were contacted by industrial economics. Who were the stakeholders that they contacted?
You know, Chris, you might, sorry. I was breaking my own rule. I didn't have a microphone. So they contacted, like, Corps of Engineers. They contacted the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We said NRCS, that's who they are. State transportation agencies. Remember, this is a larger designation than involves numerous states. So there's a lot of state agencies that are also use federal monies. And Chris, I'll turn it over to you if you want to give more specifics on the context.
Okay. So yeah, when IEC contacts the federal agencies and the state agencies, if they indicate that there was a company or a landowner that they've done a consultation with, then IEC would follow up with that person, but they have to,
IEC is the contractor.
The economist.
So they would only contact the landowner if one of the agencies sent to talk to the landowner. So in other cases, no other landowners were consulted. No.
It would have to be, because critical habitat is only is affected through consultation. So we'd only contact landowners that have been involved with consultations with federal agencies for. So if it's a developer that maybe has been involved a lot with getting stormwater permits or something like that, they may have contacted the developer. If there's a specific farmer that NRCS knows that was involved with some sort of consultation, they may have directed them to that landowner.
Okay. So could you go over again the definition of a take? It was kind of fast and I didn't get all of it.
I can do it. So take is to harass, harm, pursue, shoot, collect.
Shoot a
There's a
mussel.
couple others, but that's the German.
Capture or collect.
Capture or collect.
Capture or what?
Capture or collect.
Capture or collect. So how would someone know if the species would be harassed? How would you even make that judgment? How would they know they needed to contact them?
So harassment is legally defined in our regulations. Harassment is the likelihood that you will significantly alter the species' ability to feed, shelter, or reproduce. That's the legal definition.
Okay. Where is that found? That regulation?
Harass
I
a
will.
mussel.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll get your contact.
Mussel
information.
harassment.
Just a couple more, I'm sorry. It was really fast, so I didn't get everything. So how many mussels did you say there are now in Arkansas that are left in Arkansas?
In the Illinois River with the Neosho bucket, there's 9 sites that still have Neosho buckets.
Yeah, I was
2/3
just
of the
asking
sites
how
have
many.
3 or fewer individuals.
Just in the whole state of Arkansas, how many mussels are left?
We don't know the exact number. I mean, it varies from study to study. So I mean, it's not like you have a continual census throughout the river. So a lot of times you may get a survey that's for a couple miles of the river, and next survey maybe downstream a little bit, and then the next one might be in between, and so you have to look at all that science.
Yeah, have you guys done that?
We looked at approximately 270 publications, scientific publications, and 17 mollusk museum collections where these scientists from like the early 1900s, 1800s, when they collected shells in Arkansas, a lot of those shells ended up in museums like at the Smithsonian, the Academy of Sciences in Philadelphia, and so we have to go and look at those museum collections to see where those shells came from, so we can get a good idea of what the distribution of that species was historically and what it looks like today.
So you've done that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how many do you guys think there are now?
Like I said, I don't have an exact number for how many are in Arkansas.
But before you took all these steps to start all this action, you didn't come up with an idea of how many you think that you're fighting for?
Yeah, we look at the numbers that are collected at each site. And there's some of that in the proposed rule, and there's some in the status assessment. I'd be glad to get that
Neither one of you
information.
guys know how many mussels there were?
I can get you that information. Yes, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Ballpark.
Yes, I can get you in the ballpark. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will get you the information.
How much money have you guys spent so far on this action since it started?
In terms of how much.
From the very beginning when somebody said, okay, we need to list this species as an endangered species, from that point to today, how much money has been spent on this? All the hearings and the public meetings, all these nice flyers and all the agencies you consulted with,
Sure.
all the hours of
Sure.
salary.
This one has been, and I can get you that information.
Okay.
This has been more expensive than most because of the number of public comment periods that we've had, the size of the designation. This is it's a large designation for the rabbitsfoot proposal, and it's also, so it's been more expensive than most. But a typical listing can cost as much as, an action by us can cost as much as $250,000, to go through the whole entire process. And so but I can find out more specific if I can get your contact information.
Okay.
And I know that there's a couple of folks that want to comment. Yeah,
Can we get a copy of the presentation?
Sure, you'll give you a copy of the presentation, sure.
Just one more question. So you studied all the science and you did your scientific research. So if all the mussels in Arkansas were to die, what would happen? What would be the scientific result?
You want to?
It varies. It's hard to say. When one species disappears, how's that going to affect the rest of the system? Was that species, were there other species that depended on that species for their survival? And then if that one disappears and then it affects the next one, do you see a ripple effect to the ecosystem? It's possible. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. You might see one species disappear naturally, or you might see one disappear because of something that happened that humans did. But it's hard to predict. If all mussels disappeared from all the rivers in the state, then you might see a decline in fur-bearing animals like muskrats and otters. You might see effects to water quality because these are natural filters of the water, so they help purify the rivers and streams for us. They have a foot that allows them to anchor down into the rock and gravel, and so where there's mussel beds with dense concentrations of mussels, they help stabilize that river bottom. And so if there were no mussels there anymore, there's a possibility that you might see that channel migrating and shifting more. Pools might fill in. So there's a lot of things that can happen to a river if mussels disappear.